honestly, if you're a physicist, if you're watching this right now and you're a physicist and you think you're good at explaining physics, debate a flat earther. If you do it, I promise anyone who studies physics right now, if you debated a flat earther, like I'm talking like Witsit or Flat Earth Dave, like the guys who do it all the time, they will, I'll bet you any amount of money, they will destroy you.
Are you a flat earther?
No, of course not.
Of course not. Okay.
And my point is, they will even though they're completely wrong.
Yeah.
They're completely wrong about everything they're saying.
Do they believe that they're right?
Yeah, they absolutely believe they're right. And they use the Bible in order. They talk about the firmament in the book of Genesis in order to describe what we're basically in, like a fishbowl. Like it's ridiculous. But the point is, I've done this. I've had physicists going up against flat earthers, and the physicists get destroyed. If you need to practice in order to express your viewpoint in a bulletproof manner.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is find people who disagree with me. One of the things I wanted to do were really brush up on my physics knowledge is I started debating these flat earthers, and it's hard as shit. I got to do 20, 30 hours of study because I have to debunk all their nonsense
like,
about Van Allen belts.
Beating me? I don't understand how I get. You're like, how's this idiot beating me? Like,
yeah, no, it's one of the first. Well, I don't think I've ever lost a flat earth debate. Most people will say there's two I've done where people were like really surprised. Like I've convinced people in the opposite direction, but when I see normal people go up against flat earthers, they get destroyed. Well, it's the same kind of situation where it's like I want to be able to explain my theories on evolutionary psychology, and if I believe these things, then I need to go up against people who don't agree with me.
Yeah.
And when I go up against them, I need to debunk every single one of their beliefs.
Yeah.
And usually it's easy to do that now because you can go on TikTok and every one of their beliefs is in a 90-second clip, and you can just go research it. It's it's actually much easier.
These are their top 10 beliefs.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
I've thought about this a lot recently. Just being more outspoken about faith.
Yes.
And just saying, man, do I really want to study apologetics and go deep into that section? Because, like you said, you got to be able to defend yourself.
Yes. But the thing is, while you may study that, going up against Richard Dawkins is going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
Richard Dawkins, who's an atheist, it's going to be very difficult for you to explain, because the thing is, this is the way I explained it. I don't know if you've seen my clip on this. It did really well, which is that I believe in the resurrection of Christ based on faith, but not on evidence. Only doubting Thomas had evidence. He got to see the holes that went through Jesus.
Yeah.
The rest of us believe because we read it in a book and we believe on faith. For me, it's a pretty big piece of evidence. There's 1.2 billion Christians on the planet. That's a pretty big piece of evidence. But there were hundreds of people who watched him die at Calvary, and hundreds of people who watched him after the resurrection.
Yeah.
To me, those people then spread their word and believed what they believed. To me, that is me believing in Jesus on faith. I do not believe in a literal interpretation of the Old Testament. Like, I don't believe God came down and says, those Jezebites, kill them all and take all their virgins. I don't think God did that. I think what happened is they killed all the Jezebites, and then they took their virgins, and then afterwards wrote in a book, hey, this is what God told us to do. So for me, I have a belief based on faith in the New Testament, and I believe the Old Testament is somewhat of an interpretation of what people believe. Like, for instance, when it says go forth and multiply in the book of Genesis, the term billion did not exist in the Aramaic they were writing in. Like, no one had conceived of 8 billion people living on the planet. So I think some of it is a bit of a mismatch. But for me, I still believe in physics and I still believe in God. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for me, that's what I would tell Richard Dawkins. I would not say, hey, listen, my belief in God does not preclude me from believing in Homo sapien evolution or the Big Bang, but I think God put those things in order. God created those. God put the 4 fundamental forces in the universe, and God created natural selection. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. That's how I would do it. But if you have a debate with a scientist, you guys are going to find any common ground, and so there won't really be a debate. I believe because of faith, and he believes because of science, and there's just no way to cross. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So back to the dating scene, you said a third of men are just like, there's short term, there's long term.
Yeah, in short term, or what you would say is an unfamiliar scenario, there's what'll happen is there's a few guys who do incredibly well with women, and then a lot that don't. So the trick is to get women from an unfamiliar scenario into a familiar scenario, in which case now you can let her know that you're funny, you can let her know that you have social alignments, you can let her know that you're charismatic, she can see that you have a deep voice, she can actually look at your autonomic responses. Like when you talk to a really beautiful woman, do your eyes get big? Does your voice go up an octave? Do your palms start sweating? Do you become very fidgety? If you do these things, she can tell, okay, I'm probably the hottest girl he's ever seen, or the hottest girl he could ever be with. That's why he's acting nervous. And then if you're a guy, if you've seen a guy who's been with like lots of women, when he goes up and talks to a pretty girl, he never looks at her boobs. He's like, yeah, what up? He might call her bro and give her a fist bump. Like he's totally unaffected by her physical attractiveness. And then women find him more attractive. So that's one of the cues that happens. in the short-term dating market, what happens is a lot of these guys, they don't do that. They're at the bottom. They don't have any social calibration whatsoever. Obviously, autism is far more pervasive in men than it is in women. And so because of that, you just see this like bottom third of men that cannot be charismatic. They cannot be funny. They're just not tall enough. They just don't have the facial symmetry. They're just not handsome. And so for those guys, they're having a hard time. But the study that I meant to bring up to you before is the GSS does this study where they looked at the average number of sexual partners for women that cheated in a relationship and the average number of sexual partners for women that did not cheat. So before marriage. So they did this survey. And I would have a group of 10 girls there, and I would say, do you think that body count matters as far as cheating in a relationship? And of course, all the women are going to say no. Of course it doesn't matter. I can sleep with 50 guys before I'm married. I would never cheat on my husband. And I'm like, so if I did a survey with 7,000 women, what I should find is the women who cheated should have the same previous number of sexual partners as the women who don't cheat, right? Is that what I should find?
Yeah.
And if it was 10% more, that would be
a little variance.
A little variance. If it was 50% more, that would be pretty significant.
Yeah.
It is 230% more. The women who cheat in relationships have had 230% more sexual partners than women who didn't. That is statistically significant and incredibly offensive, Ryan.
Yeah.
If you think about that, if you explain that concept to women, that is horribly offensive. What do you mean? There's actual data that shows that you can't turn a hoe into a housewife? Actual data that shows that? That's horribly offensive. You shouldn't be posting that stuff, Michael. Who hurt you? You're promoting incel culture and hatred towards women. No, I'm not. What I'm doing is telling women that I'm close to maybe having a massive body count before you get married is a bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, but like even just without the data, it's just common sense.
For sure. But if you say that, Ryan, though, if you say that it's common sense, they're going to be like, look at this misogynist.
No, I don't really care what they say, but
Yeah.
it is common sense.
Yes. But for me, now I can speak to the other side
Yeah.
because you're not arguing with me anymore. You're arguing with the general survey study. You're arguing with the GSS now. That's the problem. You're arguing with the U.S. Census data.
Well, I think what happens is it's not even like I'm saying it's common sense, but right, there's always the study is taking an average of it. Any study, right, is taking the average. And so within an average, there's always people who that's not true for. There's people who it's like extremely true for. And so like, you know, you're going to have everyone only thinking from their subjective point of view of like, yeah, I would have been one of those people that wouldn't have, or, you know, yeah, I could see.
No, but I'll talk to women who've been with 50 guys, literally were in a marriage, telling me this wasn't true, and they cheated on their husband at the same time. They think like they're.
Well, yeah, I mean, people are delusional. That's just. You know,
Sadia Khan, she has this one clip that went viral, which basically she was talking to Lewis Howell, and she says, I believe that women cheat more than men, but women don't admit that it's cheating. They're like, when a woman cheats, it's like, no, he wasn't validating me, so it's not cheating.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but I'm like, it's something that I'm looking into the research. The research right now states
well, that was
men cheat more than
actually,
women.
by the way, that line of thinking was my point about back to the Israel-Palestine thing of why I said, if you like Hamas, then you probably like Hitler, because Hitler's justification for the Jews was that, hey, we're oppressed. Germany has gone through this 10-year cycle.
Yes.
You know, we can do whatever we want. And all the German people are like, yeah, I'm tired of this. Like, they've treated us like crap. Let's roll. Right now, not every German believed in it, but they believed in it enough to elect Hitler.